Hey everyone, CT here. Welcome to the Audio Lab. Throughout the month of July, I'm running a little experiment. I know so many of you love to listen to your books, and since I'm getting ready to eventually record and publish the official audiobook for Brown Beyond Borders, Emerging into Golden Multidimensionality, I wanted to practice out loud with you first. So, every single day this month, I'm pulling up a chair, reading a few pages of my memoir right here. And if you're on the free list, these daily drops will stay open for just a few days before they head into the archives for my paid subscribers. So make sure you keep up. And if you ever miss a session or want to unlock the whole archive to listen at your own pace, you can upgrade to a paid subscription at any time. But today, we are continuing Chapter 3, Overcoming Limiting Beliefs. And we are starting sort of here in this middle section, page 63, with the capital H right there. So, have you ever been told you weren't good enough? How many times have you ever been told to slow down, pause for someone else to catch up, or wait for the crowd? It has happened to me throughout my life, both in school and university, as well as during my career. So I probably should not have been surprised when I received loud and clear pushback during a goal setting meeting with my performance leader. No, it's not possible, Penelope cried out. You haven't even been here a year. That's exactly why, I countered, keeping my cool as I was still shocked but not surprised by the directness of her first words in response to my ambition to be regraded. But I continued. Since I've been here, I have worked on several projects where the teams I'm collaborating with are consistently giving me the feedback that I'm performing above my current grade. The goal setting conversation centered on my desire to pursue a promotion to the next grade over the next 12 months. The organization I worked for, like many others I had worked for, had a process for advancing its employees. At the beginning of the year, employees declare their intentions to be promoted by year's end. By mid year, qualified employees are longlisted for consideration. And then a couple of months later, the employees are shortlisted and given a date when they're expected to present their promotion case to a small panel of senior leaders in the organization, some of whom will meet the candidate for the first time. So, where did I? Immediately after the presentation, they confer in private to determine whether the candidate should be considered for promotion. In some cases, the candidate learns about their promotion on the spot. In others, they must wait a few weeks for the verdict. We concluded the goal setting conversation by incorporating my intention into my performance goals, and I resumed my daily work. That initial conversation rattled me. Even though I had several similar conversations in earlier years, this one with Penelope stood out because it contradicted the company's process. The performance handbook available to all employees was clear on process, but vague about any specific prerequisites. Each promotion case would be reviewed on a case by case basis. So, why was Penelope so adamant in her position? The next 6 months leading up to my mid year conversation with Penelope were emotionally confusing. I had set up several short and longer meetings with coworkers, project collaborators, and senior leaders to understand how they viewed my role and work ethic, and to hear their thoughts on my chances of qualifying for a promotion. The conversations I had were elucidating and informed the arguments that eventually made their way into my case. Overall, the discussions I had were supportive and encouraging, a severe contrast to the goal setting discussion I had held with Penelope. Heading into my mid year discussion, I reasoned with myself that Penelope might have been under a lot of stress earlier. She would be encouraged that I was on track with my goals, and we could address the issue of my name being submitted to HR for longlisting. After a long day's work, we headed into a private office space and put my performance tracker up on the screen. I started the conversation by saying that I was still on track with my goals and that the only item requiring attention was that of being longlisted. How is longlisting carried out? I asked. You're still doing this, are you? Penelope confronted me. Well, yes, I thought I was clear during my goal setting meeting earlier this year. I've already met with several leaders over the past few months, and I'm slowly getting clearer on my presentation. I was rambling, and my heart started racing. It became clear that she thought I had given up based on our earlier conversation. You don't understand, Cynthia. Penelope's voice went up a few decibels. Things are happening in the background that I can't tell you about. Yes, but my voice was starting to rise as well. I checked myself because I had long ago learned that when the volume of my voice increases, it is perceived as threatening. So I took a deep, calming breath and I started over. Penelope, you've got to understand, I began, appealing to Penelope's reason. I can't make decisions for myself and my career based on things happening in the background and conversations I'm not a part of. Cynthia, you're ruining your chances, Penelope screamed. I don't want to see you destroy your career. I pushed back my chair, feeling threatened by Penelope's thrashing movements. We were both sitting in a small enclosed space. It was after hours in the office, but there were still people milling around. And even though the office spaces are well insulated, I'm certain the other office workers heard her screaming. It made me feel safer that I was in a public place. At this point, my amygdala was on high alert. I was in a state of fright, flight, and freeze all at once. I was extremely conscientious about not mirroring her behavior. I've grown up learning that the consequences are greater and worse when people of color demonstrate the same behavior as Penelope was doing right there. I stood up to end the conversation and made my way to the door. I turned and said, very softly, but very firmly, I have to take that chance, Pen. I have to do this for myself. I have to go for the promotion and put the decision in the panel's hands. If I don't do this because of things happening in the background that I know nothing about, I will regret not even trying. My hand was resting on the office door handle. I had clearly indicated that the meeting was over, and before I pressed down on the handle, I said, I understand if you can't support me on this, but I'm letting you know that I'm doing this because you're my performance manager. Will you be filing for my case to be longlisted, or should I approach HR on my own? In that moment, Penelope realized that I was no longer asking for her permission, her endorsement, or her support. It was the exact same moment when I realized I needed to advocate for myself. That was the turning point for me. Realizing that you need to advocate for yourself means you have to know yourself completely and honestly. You must see yourself clearly from within and also understand how the world outside perceives you. It also meant I needed to be crystal clear on why I believed I deserved the promotion. The conversations with Penelope had deflated me immensely. And while I continued to hold meetings, socialize my case, and refine my messages, a persistent question lingered in the back of my mind whether I was doing the right thing. The nagging voice that was chipping away at the confidence I knew I needed most. To succeed in this journey, I had to recruit allies. Each ally brought specific essential qualities to support my mission. The first ally I recruited was my husband. He represented my psychological safe space away from the office. More importantly, he had my back without my needing to explain myself or prove myself to him. And for him, I knew there was no question in his mind that if I felt I should be promoted, I had all the qualities needed to perform in the higher grade. The standoff with Penelope awakened my inner critic. Not only did a detracting voice reveal itself to me from the outside, but I noticed that my inner detracting voice was much more vocal and frightening. My husband, Paul, was there every step of the way. He reassured me that I had all the experience and tools required to complete the step and fulfill my role in the new promoted position. More importantly, he reminded me of specific moments we had shared when he and I ran a restaurant together in Atlanta. For example, he reminded me of how we struggled to get our liquor license approved by government officials, and how I applied my PR and marketing skills to turn our trial into a story worthy of media attention. Not only did a major alternative weekly cover our story, but a liquor license arrived in the mail some 10 days later. The second ally I recruited was a colleague who performed the same work as I, just not in the same country. It mattered to me that we didn't report to or perform our jobs with the same people or decision makers. More significantly, Grace Doyle was a US educated biracial woman and an immigrant in Europe. We shared so much in common, including the fact that we were both working in the same global organization. I looked up to her. She was a self made professional who left her hometown in the United States, making her way step by step through her career and into Europe. Grace was my sounding board for campaign strategy. I shared with her themes, topics, and ideas I needed to cover in my presentation. She would encourage me, support me, and gently nudge me to go deeper when it came to sharing who I am. Her last recommendation was probably the scariest, but ultimately the most powerful. She gave me the courage to look within, understand the essence of who I am, explore the relationships that have shaped me, and the experiences that have formed me so that I could discover for myself the value I bring to the organization. At a time when I felt othered and very much on the outside looking in, I learned that the qualities that people other me Sorry, let me try that again. At a time when I felt othered and very much on the outside looking in, I learned that the qualities that people other me for are probably where I will find my worth. It was not easy for me to explore my background to understand the ingredients that communicate who I am. Harder yet was determining which elements were most relevant to the role, the grade, and the panel members. Honestly, I was worried about how my story would be perceived. While I've had my struggles, my life has hardly been as tragic as Oliver Twist's. Grace had a gift for creating a safe space in which I could share some of my travails and then to summarize my story in a nutshell, capturing the essence of what I needed to convey to the panel. These interactions with her were so powerful because they allowed me to give voice to the stories of my past in an unrehearsed and unfiltered way. She would validate and appreciate my stories, and then we would sort through them together, drawing out the elements we felt would strengthen my case and filtering out the pieces that didn't lend support to my message. The third and final ally I recruited was also on her promotion journey. Born to Swiss and Iranian parents, she grew up in England but later moved to Switzerland as an adult. I saw her as a campaign co strategist, and she proved to be a valuable ally in the final weeks leading up to the panel presentation. An amateur improvisational actress, she coached me on stage presence and delivery. Her insights were desperately needed because by this point in my career, I had experienced a few worst case scenarios in my history of public speaking performances. For example, playing Mrs. Banks in a second grade performance of Mary Poppins, I blanked on some of my lines of dialogue. I remember Mrs. Garcia prompting me with my lines. Then, during my high school graduation ceremony, I was so moved by a classmate's valedictorian speech that I broke down in sobs during my solo performance of No One Is Alone from the musical Into the Woods. Of course, I have survived numerous audiovisual technical difficulties in the past, so I knew my presentation script had to hold up in case I couldn't share a slide deck. She helped me practice my presentation without my slides. She gave me confidence that my script was well crafted and rock solid. She coached me on my presence, always denying that she could see my knees knocking or hear my voice trembling. It was the sort of coaching I needed. Between meetings with these three allies, I continued to hold discussions with other leaders within the organization. They heard about my case. Some of them saw early versions of my presentation and offered valuable tips and feedback. Most of them wished me luck. By the final weekend before my presentation, my husband had also committed my script to memory. I had recorded myself delivering the presentation on my smartphone, and then I walked around my apartment speaking my script out loud while listening to my voice. And while I didn't want to sound like a robot, I wanted my talk to flow on autopilot. On presentation day, one of the panelists I had expected to be there failed to appear. Two other panelists ended up attending my talk virtually, which meant I was speaking to a hybrid panel. One senior leader in the room, along with human resources business partner, and two others dialed in. I was so prepared for that moment, it didn't phase me. I remember relaxing right before I uttered my first word because I knew I had done my best work. I was confident about the content and structure of my 10-minute presentation. I was comfortable with it too. After the HR business partner made a quick statement that I had only 10 minutes to deliver my presentation, and she would signal when I had a minute to go, I remember nodding, pausing, taking a deep breath, and relaxing into my center. In no time, my 10-minute presentation was over. One of the monitors in the room, along with the camera that beamed my image to the virtual attendees, blipped out. They could see my slides, they couldn't see me, only listen to my words. The senior leader in the room thanked me and asked me to sit down for a couple of questions. Those minutes went by in a flash, too, and the next thing I knew, I thanked them for their time and left the room. Later that afternoon, I was shaking loose my rattled nerves, letting off the steam from my adrenaline high, and chatting with a colleague. I received a call on my mobile phone. The panel will recommend me for a promotion. He added that the senior leader who had been sitting in the room told the other panelists that mine was, quote, the best he had ever seen. We have explored the concept of the pale, which goes beyond physical and geographical boundaries and treads into the realm of cultural expectations and social norms. For US educated brown immigrant women, the pain can feel particularly complex. Every day, we navigate multiple boundaries, sometimes hopping from one pale to the other. We navigate multiple tribes, our families, our communities, our workplaces, each with its own set of expectations and unspoken codes. This complexity, particularly when it's navigated from an early age, also fosters a unique strength. We develop the ability to see things from multiple perspectives and to adapt and thrive in diverse environments. These anecdotes are firsthand accounts of the struggles I faced in navigating systemic barriers and societal expectations alongside my internal conflict with my sense of identity and self worth. They provide a glimpse into the complexities of the elements at stake when faced with challenges. For many years, I remembered these moments in my life when I felt especially challenged by external events, and I drew inspiration and strength from them. I hope as you continue to read these pages, you remember your own stories and feel empowered to cultivate unshakable confidence for yourself too. Take your stories as your source of resilience, strength, and determination to overcome challenges, shining a light on the path towards unshakable confidence and embracing your true potential. We are bridge builders, the cultural navigators, the pioneers who challenge the rigid boundaries of the pale, and we have had all the training we need. And that is where we are stopping for today. And if you have a question about the book, the writing process, or anything we covered in today's post or segment, drop it in the comments of this post, and I might just answer yours on a future episode. I'm really glad I get to share this unedited process with you. Look out for the next pages in your inbox tomorrow morning. And if you know someone who would connect with this part of the journey, please share this post with them while it's still open to the public. And if you want to support this audio experiment and my writing as I start drafting book 2, consider becoming a paid subscriber to unlock everything. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.